They called me in after midnight, Vatican time. The summons wasn't on paper. It never is. Just a knock on the apartment door, 3 raps measured like a prayer. I opened it and saw the man in a black suit. No insignia, no smile, no words. He just nodded. And I knew. When the Vatican calls, you don't ask why. I dressed in silence, combat boots laced, jacket zipped, sidearm holstered. My hand brushed the rosary tucked inside the pocket. Habit, not faith. Faith died years ago on a dusty road outside Fallujah. Orders, however, I still obey. The car ride was silent. Through Rome's cobbled arteries we drove, past ruins older than most nations, past the pilgrims who never sleep. They walk with candles and prayers. I sit with a loaded Glock and memories I'd rather forget. They took me down, below the Vatican proper. Not the polished marble corridors tourists dream about, but deeper, the stone veins no map admits exist. Concrete gave way to rock, old and wet, sweating history. Every step down felt like leaving the world behind. We stopped at a chamber lit by a single chandelier. 12 men sat at a long table, all in scarlet. Cardinals, princes of the church. Their rings glittered under the light, eyes dark with something heavier than doctrine. One of them motioned me closer. I recognized him. Cardinal Severin, thin as a crow, smile like a blade. He's the kind of man who could bless you and bury you in the same breath. Captain Raphael Costa, he said. My name echoed in the chamber like a verdict. Sit. I sat. The chair was wood, ancient and unyielding. My back straightened of its own accord. Another cardinal spoke, a voice heavy with authority. You served Italy well. Iraq, Syria, missions unrecorded. Your record is exemplary. They always talk like that. Praise wrapped in iron. You learn not to answer. Severin folded his hands. The church has a task for you. A relic buried beneath the necropolis must be retrieved before it falls into unworthy hands. A relic? I asked. The Spear of Longinus. The words hit harder than gunfire. Every soldier knows the myth. The spear that pierced Christ's side, said to grant victory to whoever wields it. A story, I always thought. But sitting there, 12 cardinals staring at me, I realized myths are just secrets with better PR. Why now? I asked. Because enemies circle, Severin said. There are factions outside these walls who know where to dig. We cannot allow that. The spear must be returned to the custody of the church. He leaned forward, eyes like nails pinning me to the chair. You will lead a team of 5, Custodes Special Unit, chosen for loyalty, for silence. You descend at dawn. No mention of what waited below. No mention of why the spear had been buried and never unearthed in 2,000 years. Just an order. I nodded. That was enough. But as I rose to leave, a voice rasped from the far end of the table. Another cardinal. Old as stone, eyes clouded with age but sharp as broken glass. He leaned close as I passed. Don't let them lie to you, he whispered. His breath smelled of incense and secrets. The spear is not a weapon. It is a chain, and chains only hold as long as no one pulls them free. I froze. His words dug deeper than any blessing, but Severin's voice cut the moment. Captain Costa, he said, louder now for all to hear. Do not falter. This mission is God's will. I looked at him, then at the old man, still staring at me with something like fear or pity. And for the first time since I swore myself to the Custodes, I wondered which voice carried God's truth, the one that promised victory, or the one that whispered warning. Dawn never touches the places we went. At first light, our team assembled in the courtyard behind the apostolic palace. No uniforms, no flags, just black fatigues and silence. 5 of us, plus me. Men and women pulled from shadows of armies and agencies, each with their ghosts stitched into their eyes. Father Alvarez led the prayer before we moved out. His collar was crisp, his pistol holstered under the vestments, a priest with blood on his hands and ashes in his smile. "Dominus vobiscum," he intoned. The rest of us didn't answer. Words mean nothing when you've seen what waits behind them. We carried standard kit, rifles, sidearms, breaching gear. But each of us also bore a relic issued by the Vatican armory. Mine was a rosary carved from bone. Others had medallions, crucifixes, scraps of saints' shrouds encased in glass. They weren't charms. They were insurance, though against what none of us had been told. The entry point lay beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Not the crypt the pilgrims tour, but a passage sealed since the Renaissance. It took 3 guards with iron keys to open the gate, each key turning in sequence like part of a ritual. When the last lock groaned, the door shuddered open, exhaling a breath that smelled of damp earth and forgotten blood. We descended. The first flights were carved stone, steps polished by centuries of feet that no longer lived. Fluorescent lamps hung on the walls, buzzing faintly. But their light faded the deeper we went. Soon, only our lamps cut through the dark. The necropolis sprawls beneath the Vatican like a spider's web. Crypts and corridors knotted together in a maze built by generations trying to bury their secrets as much as their dead. Walls sweated moisture, flecked with veins of black mold. Paintings once holy now flaked into grotesque parodies. Angels with no eyes, saints whose mouths dripped red. Sergeant Dario muttered, "Looks more like Tartarus than Rome." "Shut it," I said. Words travel strangely underground. Echoes don't come back right. We passed niches filled with bones, their owners nameless, stacked like mortar. Some skulls still bore traces of paint, remnants of frescoes meant to honor them. Now the colors looked more like bruises. After the 3rd junction, my comms unit crackled. A burst of static, then silence. I tapped the headset. Command, confirm copy. Nothing. Lieutenant Sophia adjusted hers. "Mine's dead too." Father Alvarez crossed himself. "Not malfunction, suppression." I didn't answer. He was probably right. Places like this don't like witnesses. At the 5th junction, we found the first carving. A figure of a man etched into the stone wall. Not Roman, older. He held a spear, its tip pointed downward. Beneath him, smaller figures lay prostrate, their faces twisted in agony. Someone had tried to scratch the carving away centuries ago, but the image endured, darker than the stone around it. Corporal Niels spat. "That's no saint," no one corrected him. The deeper we went, the colder it grew. Not the kind of cold that makes you shiver, but the kind that crawls inside your lungs, slows your blood, whispers in your ear that you are trespassing. My breath steamed in front of me. The others noticed it too. Dario's lips moved like he was praying, but no sound came out. Then the lights flickered. Just once. But in that second, I swear I saw movement at the far end of the corridor. Not our shadows. Something taller, broader, wings unfurling just beyond reach of the lamps. "Clear?" Sophia asked, rifle raised. "Keep moving," I ordered. Stopping is when fear sets in. We reached a narrow stair spiraling downward. Stone steps slick with condensation, each one worn thin at the center, as if thousands of feet had once rushed down in panic. The air here reeked of iron. At the bottom lay a gate of rusted bronze. Symbols covered it, Latin, Greek, and others I couldn't name. Some burned faintly when our lamps passed over them, like embers refusing to die. "This is it," Alvarez whispered. His voice didn't echo. Nothing did anymore. We forced the gate open. The sound was a scream of metal dragged across centuries. Behind it stretched a long hall lined with statues. They weren't saints. Each figure had wings but broken, faces but veiled, hands but chained. They stood in silence. Yet the air between them vibrated like plucked strings. Their shadows moved even when ours didn't. One statue held a spear, not the spear, just a likeness. Its stone eyes followed us as we passed. "Eyes front," I said, though my own gaze betrayed me. For a moment I thought I saw tears of black stone trailing down its cheek. At the end of the hall loomed a door, taller than 10 men, carved of black marble veined with crimson. My lamp's beam couldn't touch its top. The surface pulsed faintly, as if it were breathing. This was no crypt door. This was a seal. On the lintel above, Latin words etched deep: clavis et vinculum. The key and the chain. Dario hissed through clenched teeth. "Captain, we shouldn't—" The door trembled once, just once. Dust rained from the ceiling. I tightened my grip on the rifle, the rosary bone beads pressing cold against my chest. We had been sent to retrieve a weapon, but every step closer told me we were approaching a prison. The black marble door gave way with a groan that shook the stone under our boots. Not pushed, not pulled. Yielded, like something behind it wanted us inside. The chamber beyond swallowed light. Our lamps fought against the dark and lost. The air was thick, metallic, like breathing iron filings. At the center stood the spear. It jutted from a block of stone like a thorn from flesh. The haft was bronze, tarnished green with age, but the tip gleamed as though it had just been forged. A faint glow pulsed along its length, not bright but steady, like a heartbeat. We approached as a unit, rifles raised. Training says form a perimeter, check corners, secure the room. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was a sanctum, and we were trespassers. The floor beneath the spear was ringed with mosaics. I crouched to examine them. At first glance, they looked like the Passion, Christ on the cross, soldiers mocking him, Longinus stepping forward with the spear. But the details were wrong. The soldier's face was twisted in terror, not malice. The spear pierced Christ's side, but from the wound poured not just blood, but chains of light, lashing outward like living things. The chains coiled around a figure at the mosaic's edge, vast, winged, its eyes burning black. Azazel. The name pressed itself into my skull, though no one spoke it. I looked away, throat dry. "Captain," Sophia whispered. Her light traced the far wall. "You need to see this." The walls were covered in frescoes, spanning centuries of decay but still vivid enough to tell their story. Angels in white battling a host of winged shadows, flames pouring from the heavens, men kneeling in fear. At the center, again and again, the same figure, a dark seraph, bound in chains that sprouted from Christ's wound. It wasn't a story of crucifixion, it was a story of imprisonment, Dario muttered. This isn't the gospel." Father Alvarez's voice trembled as he translated a line inscribed beneath the fresco. Et vulnus eius clavis facta est. His wound became the key. Silence fell heavy. The spear wasn't just the weapon that pierced Christ. It was the lock, the chain, the nail that bound something far older and darker than Rome itself. I forced my eyes back to the spear. Its glow pulsed faster, as if sensing us. My rosary felt hot against my chest. Sophia's knuckles whitened on her rifle. "Captain, if this is true, if the spear isn't just relic, but prison, what are we doing here?" Before I could answer, the floor shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling, coating our shoulders. Whispers bled into the chamber, not from our radios, not from the walls, from the stone itself. Voices layered, hundreds of them, speaking in a tongue I didn't know but my blood understood. A chorus begging, a chorus warning. Dario swore and raised his rifle toward the shadows. "I say we leave it, seal the door, forget this ever existed." "No," Alvarez said sharply. His eyes gleamed fever bright. "The church ordered retrieval. Obedience is salvation." "Obedience," Dario spat, "is suicide." Their voices clashed, but I barely heard them. My focus locked on the spear. The glow reached a rhythm now, not a heartbeat, a countdown. And for the first time, I realized the truth. We hadn't discovered this chamber. We had been led here. The spear was waiting. Brother Matteo moved first. While the rest of us kept our distance from the glowing spear, he stepped forward, slow but certain, as if pulled by an invisible hand. His boots scraped the stone, echoing too loud in the chamber. "Matteo," I called. My voice bounced off the frescoes. "Step back." He didn't answer. His lips were moving, but no sound came out. His eyes never left the weapon. Then he dropped to his knees. One hand rested against the block of stone where the spear was lodged. His head bowed low, not in prayer, not in fear. It was something else. Submission. "Matteo," Sophia said, her rifle rising. "Get away from it." He finally looked up. His face was pale, damp with sweat, but his eyes, they were not the eyes of the quiet brother who had prayed with us hours before. "You don't understand," he whispered. "This mission is a lie." "What are you talking about?" Dario demanded. Matteo's hand slid closer to the spear. His fingers trembled, but he kept reaching. "The spear cannot leave this chamber," he said. "It must stay buried. That is why we were really sent here, not to recover it, not to bring it back, to bleed for it." "Stand down," I ordered. My rifle was up now. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Matteo's lips curled into something between a smile and a grimace. "We are not soldiers tonight. We are sacrifices." Sophia shouted, "Captain, he's going for it!" Dario fired. The shot cracked through the chamber, deafening against the stone. Matteo jerked as the bullet punched through his shoulder. He collapsed sideways, gasping, blood pooling fast across the mosaic. But he laughed. It was broken and wet, but laughter all the same. He dragged himself up on one elbow, teeth red, eyes shining with something too bright to be sane. "I did enough," he coughed. Then his hand touched the spear. The chamber shook as though the earth itself recoiled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Statues groaned in their chains. And a scream tore through the walls, not human, not even animal. It was older, deeper, a sound that carried the weight of centuries. Light erupted from the spear's tip, blinding white, lashing across the frescoes. Images twisted and writhed, the painted angels bending like wax under fire. The dark seraph opening eyes that should never have opened. Matteo was thrown back against the wall, body convulsing. His mouth moved, trying to force words out through blood and agony. "Not Vatican." And then he was still. Silence slammed down. The dust settled. The light dimmed, though the spear still pulsed like a heart trying to break free. None of us spoke. The frescoes stared back. Chains of light now cracked across their surface. The seraph's wings looked sharper, closer to tearing loose. I swallowed hard, the rosary beads in my pocket burning cold against my thigh. Matteo had betrayed us, yes, but not for Azazel, not for madness. He had tried to warn us, and we killed him before he could finish. Matteo's blood hadn't even cooled before the chains began to break. The frescoes all around us trembled. Painted cracks split across the images of light and wings, flaking centuries of dust from the walls. The mosaics at our feet shifted, tiny stones grinding against each other, reshaping the story beneath us. Christ's wound no longer poured chains. Now it bled fire. The spear pulsed harder, once, twice, then again, faster, until it beat like a war drum. The glow expanded, crawling up the shaft, searing bright against the darkness. Dario staggered back, rifle raised. "Captain, what the hell is happening?" "Hold position," I snapped, though my own voice shook. The air thickened, pressure mounting until it felt like the weight of the entire basilica pressed down on our lungs. A sound filled the chamber, not a scream this time, not even a roar. It was a breath, long, deep, something exhaling for the first time in centuries. And then we heard it. A voice. Not words at first, just tones, resonant, layered like chords struck on some colossal organ. They slid into meaning slowly, syllables twisting until they scraped the inside of my skull. "At last," it said. Sophia cried out, clapping her hands to her ears. Blood trickled between her fingers. Figures moved in the shadows of the chamber, not men, not angels. Shapes half-formed, crawling against the stone, pulling themselves free from the frescoes as if the paint itself birthed them. Their eyes burned pale, their wings broken. Their bodies bound in the same chains that now cracked across the walls. "Captain," Dario whispered, voice hollow. "They're waking up." "No," I said, though every nerve in me screamed the truth. "He is." The spear tore itself free of the stone with a sound like bone snapping. It didn't fall. It rose, suspended in midair. Chains of light, thin and frayed, snapped one after another, sparks scattering like fireflies. And then I saw him. Behind the spear, in the hollow of the chamber wall, something vast shifted. Wings unfurled, blacker than shadow, stretching so wide they seemed to brush every surface at once. A face emerged, half hidden, half carved by light and flame. Not human, not animal, not anything meant to be seen. Azazel. The name didn't come from me. It came from him, pressed into my mind like a brand. Sophia fell to her knees, weeping, whispering prayers that turned to screams. Dario fired. The bullets dissolved in the air, turning to ash before they reached him. The voice came again, deeper now, rolling through our bones. "You pulled the chain. You broke the silence. Now you will see." Every lamp we carried exploded in sparks, plunging us into near-total darkness. The only light left came from the spear, still hovering, its tip glowing red like iron pulled from a forge. Azazel's gaze found us. I didn't see eyes, not really. I felt them. A weight pressing into my chest, rifling through memories I hadn't touched in years. I saw Fallujah again, the sand burning, my squad screaming, the civilians I couldn't save. I smelled blood and smoke and guilt. I knew the others saw their own nightmares. Sophia sobbed louder. Dario dropped his rifle, clawing at the air like he was drowning. I clenched my teeth, forcing my mind back. "Stay with me!" I shouted, though my words barely pierced the oppressive dark. The spear shuddered in the air, then dropped. I caught it by instinct. The instant my hand closed on the shaft, fire surged through me. Not heat, memory. Images not mine but burned into me. Angels falling, chains forged from light, Christ's wound spilling not weakness, but judgment. Azazel screaming as the spear sealed him in flesh and stone. The truth hit me like a hammer. The spear wasn't forged to kill a man. It was made to cage a god. Azazel's laughter rolled through the chamber, cold and endless. "You hold the key," he whispered inside my skull, "and every key longs to be turned." The spear burned in my grip. My knuckles whitened around the haft. But I didn't let go. If I dropped it, I knew something worse than death would happen. Behind us, the frescoes had gone still again, but the cracks remained, glowing faintly like embers buried in stone. Azazel's laughter still vibrated inside my skull, steady, patient, like he had all the time in the world. Then my radio crackled. At first, it was static. Then a voice, sharp and familiar. "Commander Severin. Captain Costa. Report." I lifted the mic to my mouth. "We've secured the spear." My voice was hoarse, but something has been disturbed. A pause, then his tone changed, quieter, colder. "Good. The disturbance is necessary." My stomach nodded. "What are you talking about?" "You've done well," Severin said. "You and your team have opened the seal exactly as intended." Sophia froze mid-sob. Dario stared at the radio like it had grown fangs. "What seal?" I demanded. "The one your church has guarded for 2,000 years, Severin replied. "The spear is not a relic of victory. It is a prison, and like all prisons, it requires a jailer." I felt the words sink like poison. "You sent us down here knowing this would happen," I said. "Yes," Severin said simply. "Every few centuries the chains weaken. They need renewal. And renewal requires blood." My grip tightened on the mic. "You lied." You told us to retrieve it. And you have, Severin said. But retrieval was never the point. You were chosen because you are loyal, because you obey orders, because you are expendable. Sophia shook her head violently. No, no, he's lying. He has to be lying. Dario muttered. I knew this smelled wrong. The radio hissed again. Severin's voice cut sharper. One of you will bleed into the spear. That blood will bind the chains anew. That is how it has always been. That is why Matteo turned. He understood too late what the rest of you will understand now. The church survives because men like you choose duty over doubt. My chest felt hollow. The spear's weight in my hand seemed heavier than stone. Sophia staggered closer, clutching her sidearm like a drowning woman clings to driftwood. Captain, he's telling us to die down here. Severin's voice sharpened, almost cruel. Not all of you, only one. The rest may leave, but someone must pay the price. Azazel's laughter swelled, mocking, delighted. They feed me to cage me, the voice inside my head said, again and again, and still they call it holy. I pressed the mic so hard it cut into my palm. And if we refuse, Severin didn't hesitate, then you will all die, and the world will follow. Do not mistake yourself for a hero, Costa. Heroes disobey. You are a soldier. Soldiers bleed when ordered. The radio clicked off. Static swallowed the silence. Sophia's eyes were wide, wet. Captain, what do we do? Dario's jaw clenched. He spat on the floor, eyes burning. We were never meant to come back. We're lambs in armor, that's all. The spear pulsed again in my grip, and Azazel's voice wrapped around my thoughts. You hear him, the fallen seraph whispered. Even your masters admit it. You are not rescuers. You are offerings. Do you see now why I laugh? I wanted to drop the weapon, to let it shatter on the floor, but my hand refused. The spear seemed fused to my bones. Sophia backed against the wall, shaking her head over and over. They can't. They wouldn't. But they had. We all knew. Matteo's words before he died came back, blood bubbling on his lips. We are not soldiers tonight. We are sacrifices. And now I understood. The first chain snapped with a sound like thunder splitting stone. The frescoes on the walls bled dust. Statues lining the chamber cracked at the joints, their blind faces tilting toward us as if they had been waiting. The floor heaved, a slow rolling quake that threatened to throw us off our feet. Then the dark moved. Azazel's wings, half formed, half shattered, spread wide through the chamber. They weren't flesh or feather. They were shadow given weight, blotting out our lamps, crushing the air from our lungs. He was not free, not yet, but free enough to reach us. Sophia screamed as one of the wings swept across the chamber. The shock wave hurled her against the wall. Dario opened fire, his rifle barking 3 round bursts. Muzzle flash lit the frescoes, but the bullets dissolved before they reached Azazel, ash drifting in midair like snow. Captain, he's untouchable, Dario shouted. No, I said, not untouchable. The spear throbbed in my hand. Its point burned red, the heat racing up my arm. Instinct screamed at me to let go, but another instinct, older, deeper, kept me holding tighter. Azazel's voice pressed into my mind. Yes. Bring it closer. Let me feel the chain again. I charged. The spear cut a line through the dark. Azazel recoiled, wings thrashing. The chamber filled with his roar, not sound but force, shoving against me with enough weight to crush stone. I braced, teeth clenched, and drove the tip toward the shadowed mass of his chest. When steel met flesh, if it was flesh, the explosion rattled my bones. The impact seared through the air like lightning striking water. Azazel recoiled again, chains of light flickering across his form, stitching him back for a heartbeat before shattering apart once more. Only the spear hurt him, nothing else. Sophia stumbled back to her feet, face pale, blood trickling from her ear. Captain, it works. Her words cut off in a gasp. One of the broken statues had moved. Its stone arm lashed out, fingers like talons, seizing her by the throat. Dario swore and emptied a magazine into the statue. Stone shattered, chips flying, but the thing did not fall. Its grip tightened, lifting her off the ground. I pivoted and drove the spear through its chest. The stone figure convulsed, a fissure of light splitting it in two. It dropped her and collapsed into dust. Sophia coughed, gasping, but alive. All of them, she rasped, pointing. The statues lining the chamber were moving now, one by one. They tore themselves free of the walls, dragging chains still fused to their limbs. Guardians or prisoners, I couldn't tell. But their allegiance was clear. They moved for us. Dario tossed a grenade. It detonated with a sharp crack, the blast wave knocking several off balance. But when the smoke cleared, they were still coming, stone faces expressionless. Azazel laughed. My wardens, my chorus, they will sing your blood into the chain. We fell back, step by step, fighting to stay alive. My rifle was useless, so I used the spear, each strike carving arcs of fire into the dark, each impact shattering another statue. But for every one I dropped, two more lurched forward. Sophia dragged Dario toward the exit corridor. He was bleeding from a gash across his ribs, his breaths ragged. Captain, we can't hold! I swung the spear in a wide arc, forcing back another wave. We don't hold, we move. But Azazel's wings slammed down across the passage, sealing it in shadow. The only way out was now a wall of black feathers that weren't feathers at all, each plume writhing like living smoke. Trapped, Dario wheezed. Azazel's form loomed higher, towering, pulling itself loose from the fresco as chains burst one after another. His voice was iron dragged across glass. You bleed now, or the world bleeds later. The spear pulsed in my grip, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I knew then why Severin had called it a chain, why Matteo had died screaming about sacrifice. This wasn't a weapon to wield. It was a shackle that demanded a hand to hold it and a body to feed it. The air shook again. Sophia raised her sidearm and screamed into the dark, then let it feed on me. No! I roared, pulling her back. The weight was mine to carry. I was captain. I was chosen. Azazel's laughter filled the chamber, echoing against the walls, filling our skulls. Yes, choose. One must always choose. I tightened my grip on the spear and stepped forward, its glow slicing the dark, the only light left in the catacombs. The chamber doors burst open behind us. Floodlights cut through the dark, harsh white beams, slicing across stone and shadow. Dozens of boots thundered down the corridor. The Vatican had arrived, an entire detachment, armored, weapons raised. For a moment, relief burned in my chest. Reinforcements. Maybe they had realized the scale of what we were facing. Maybe they came to help. Then the orders came. Target the traitors, kill the survivors. The spear must not leave this chamber. My stomach dropped. Red laser sights painted across my chest, my arms, my head. Not one was aimed at Azazel. All of them locked on us. Captain, Sophia whispered. Her voice cracked with disbelief. They're pointing at us. Dario, bleeding and pale, gave a bitter laugh. Should have known. I raised the spear instinctively, the glow flaring brighter, defiant. Stand down, I shouted. You don't understand what you're doing. He's waking. As if on cue, Azazel's roar shook the chamber. The Vatican soldiers staggered, some falling to one knee as the sound rattled their bones. Shadow wings surged against the walls, sweeping the floodlights aside. The beams bent and snapped like twigs swallowed by the dark, and Azazel laughed. You betray even your own, the voice boomed inside all our heads. How fitting, then you will all bleed together. The soldiers opened fire, not at him, but at us. I dropped behind the broken remains of a statue as bullets ricocheted off stone. Sophia screamed, returning fire out of pure instinct, but the rounds barely slowed their line. Why us? She cried. Because we know too much, I spat. Because dead men keep better secrets. Azazel's shadow surged forward, a tidal wave of wings and talons. Vatican rifles swung toward it now, desperation overriding orders. Bullets tore the dark, useless as ever. The wave crashed into their line, bodies flung into the air like dolls, screams echoing against stone. Havoc. We were no longer soldiers fighting an enemy. We were prey, trapped between a butcher and a beast. Dario crawled to my side, blood soaking his shirt. Captain, we can't outlast this. The spear pulsed in my hand, hotter now, alive. Each beat drove deeper into my bones, a rhythm demanding an answer. Chains snapped above us. Shards of light fell like meteors, striking the floor, searing into stone. Azazel's form grew clearer. Torso, wings, fragments of a face. He was becoming whole. A Vatican soldier lunged at me, knife flashing. I spun, drove the spear point through his chest. Light erupted, blasting him backward. His body split in two, crumbling into ash before it hit the ground. Silence followed, thick with horror. The soldiers stared, their rifles wavering. They had just seen what I had seen. Only the spear mattered, and Azazel knew it. Chain-bearer, he purred in my mind. Voice, velvet and venom. You alone hold power here. Kill them all. Free me, and I will end the liars who sent you. I forced the thought aside, teeth gritted. Sophia dragged Dario toward cover, firing wildly. Captain, we can't hold both. She was right. Between Vatican steel and Azazel's shadow, survival was impossible. Unless I chose. Another soldier raised his rifle at me. I cut him down with the spear, its light cleaving through armor like butter. Ash scattered across the mosaic floor. For a heartbeat, the Vatican line faltered, confused, unsure whether to fear me or the thing in the dark. And in that hesitation, Azazel struck again. His wings smashed their formation, soldiers screaming as they were crushed, shredded, consumed. 3 sides, 1 chamber, blood on every stone. No alliances, no mercy, just betrayal, shadow, and the sound of chains breaking one by one. The chamber was a slaughterhouse. Ash drifted like snow where men had once stood. Vatican soldiers screamed, some cut down by their own ricochets, others swallowed whole by wings that were not wings. The air reeked of gunpowder, blood, and something older, sulfur, smoke, the smell of wars no scripture dared record. And in the middle of it all, Azazel towered, half bound, half born, chains of light dragging from his frame like broken jewelry. Each time he moved, another chain snapped. Each time he laughed, another man died. I forced my way forward, spear cutting a path through shadow and flesh alike. The weapon burned hotter with every strike, the haft alive, the tip glowing like molten steel. It wanted this fight. It wanted him. Sophia screamed my name from somewhere behind. Dario's gun barked weakly until it jammed. None of it mattered. My focus narrowed to the figure before me, the thing I was sent to chain, the thing I might have to kill. I raised the spear. Azazel's vast head turned, those non-eyes pinning me in place. His voice poured through me, not just sound, but memory. Images flashed behind my eyes, armies kneeling, cathedrals burning, cardinals whispering in secret chambers. You see now, he whispered. Your master sends you to bleed, not to save. They chained me in his name, yet use my prison to fuel their dominion. Do you not see their lies? I pressed forward, step by step, the spear point aimed at his chest. End this. Chain-bearer, Azazel said. Release me, and I will burn the liars from their thrones. Rome will fall, and with it the ones who betrayed you. Behind me, a voice cut through the chaos. Do it. I turned just enough to see Cardinal Severin, standing at the edge of the chamber, robes pristine despite the carnage. Guards flanked him, guns aimed, but their eyes were wild, terrified. Severin's voice thundered above it all. Strike him down! Seal him again! That is your purpose, Captain. Your life for the world! The words slammed into me harder than any bullet. 2 commands, 2 futures, Azazel's promise, freedom for him, vengeance on the church that had used me like a pawn. Severin's order, obedience unto death, another link in the endless chain of sacrifice. The spear pulsed in my grip, alive, demanding. I pressed the tip against Azazel's chest. His wings froze mid-sweep. For the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't mockery. Expectation, hunger. Behind me, Severin raised his hands. "Do it, Costa. Fulfill the covenant. Bind him again." But Azazel's whisper was softer, almost tender. "Or let me loose. You hate them already. Let me tear them apart. Let me give you justice." My breath came ragged. The weight of every order I had ever obeyed pressed down on me. I thought of Fallujah, of comrades sent to die for politics, of Elena's face when I left her behind because duty demanded it. I thought of Matteo, dying with blood on his lips, whispering, "Not Vatican, duty, obedience, sacrifice." All of it had brought me here, spear in hand, the world on a knife's edge. And for the first time, I realized I could choose. Not Severin, not Azazel, not the church, not the fallen. Me. The spear pulsed again, a rhythm that matched my heartbeat now. It was not just a chain, it was a decision carved into iron. I pressed harder. Azazel's chest glowed under the point, cracks of light spidering across his form. He roared, not in pain, but in anticipation. "Choose, chain-bearer," he thundered. "Chain me or free me." Behind me, Severin screamed, "Now! Do it now!" And in that moment, I knew neither of them deserved to command me. The spear was mine. The choice was mine. The chamber was collapsing into war and silence. Severin's voice thundered over the gunfire. "Do it, Captain! Seal him! Your life for the world!" Azazel leaned close, wings blotting out the last of the light. His whisper coiled through my skull. "No. Free me. Let me burn the liars who sent you." 2 masters, 2 chains, both poisoned. The spear pulsed in my hands, burning hotter than flesh should bear. I heard my own heartbeat in its rhythm, but underneath, something deeper. Not Severin. Not Azazel. Me. I made my choice. With a roar, I drove the spear, not into Azazel, not into Severin's vision of obedience, but into my own chest. Agony tore through me, fire and light exploding outward. My blood became chains, each drop forging links of brilliance across the chamber. They lashed around Azazel, tightening, binding, sealing. His scream shook the air. Fury and disbelief mingled. Wings crashed against the walls, shattering statues, but the chains only multiplied. "Not you," he bellowed. "Not this way." "Yes," I gasped. "Not for you, not for them, for humanity." The spear drank me dry. My legs buckled, but I didn't fall. I was lifted, pulled into the lattice of chains, becoming part of it. My body dissolved into light. My voice was the last thing that was mine. And then I was gone. When I woke, I was still in the chamber, but not as flesh. Chains stretched in every direction, infinite, humming with my heartbeat. Azazel writhed inside them, glaring at me with hate that could burn suns, but the bonds held. My bonds. I was no longer man, no longer soldier. I was the wound that never heals, bleeding forever so the world above would never know this darkness. Far above, in the wreckage of the catacombs, Sophia survived. She lay on a stretcher, face pale, body broken but alive. Vatican medics swarmed, dragging her through the corridors. Reporters crowded the square. The official story was already being written. The custodes unit sacrificed themselves to secure the Holy Spear. No mention of Azazel, no mention of chains, no mention of me. Sophia tried to speak, to tell them it was a lie. Her lips moved, but morphine dulled her tongue. A nurse hushed her, covering her face with a mask. The truth slipped away like smoke. Dario was gone, buried under stone and shadow. His blood watered the mosaics. He would be remembered only as another nameless casualty. And Severin? He lived. I saw him in memory and vision both, standing at the threshold of the chamber, robes untouched by dust, eyes reflecting fire. When the last of the chains sealed, he simply turned and walked away. Later, he stood before the College of Cardinals, voice calm, hands folded. "The spear is secure once more," he told them. "Captain Costa gave his life as all chosen have done. The covenant holds." They believed him, or pretended to, but alone in the quiet of his chambers he whispered different words. Another link in the chain, another century bought. He smiled in the candlelight. He had his victory. Down below, I whispered too. Not Vatican, not fallen, not for them, for humanity. My eyes opened inside the light, fixed forever on Azazel. He strained, but the chains held. He would strain forever, and I would hold him forever. The bells rang above, celebrating lies in scarlet halls. But the truth lived here, buried in stone, bound in blood, kept by one who chose, not commanded, not deceived, not broken. Me. I was the eternal wound, and as long as I bled, the world was safe.